The movie begins by showing Agu, a happy young boy living in a peaceful village in an unnamed African country. It's a sunny day, and children, including a young boy named Agu, are playing joyfully in the fields. The environment is alive with laughter. Families gather, and life appears simple and beautiful. As war approaches, his life falls apart, forcing him into a dangerous journey of survival under the control of a powerful but dangerous warlord. The story that follows is filled with loss, violence, and a small glimmer of hope for redemption. At the start, Agu is full of life, playing with his older brother and friends. One fun moment shows Agu trying to sell a broken TV, calling it his imagination TV, where he and his friends act out scenes. This playful scene shows the innocence of his childhood, making the dark events that follow even more heartbreaking. Agu's father, a respected teacher in the village, believes that education is the key to a better future. He is confident that the war, which is tearing through other areas, won't reach their village. He keeps reassuring his family that they will stay safe. But despite the peaceful moments, there's a sense that danger is approaching. The news of the civil war is spreading, and refugees begin to arrive in the village, adding to the fear. Agu's father, trying to stay calm and hopeful, helps these refugees even though it puts pressure on the village's resources. He refuses to believe that their home will be affected by the war. The village's false sense of safety is destroyed when government soldiers, suspecting the villagers of hiding rebels, suddenly attack. Overnight, the peaceful village becomes a battlefield. The soldiers storm in, shooting without care and capturing the villagers. In the chaos, Agu's family is separated. His mother and younger siblings manage to escape, but Agu, his father, and his older brother are left behind. One of the most heartbreaking moments in the movie follows. Agu and his family, along with the other villagers, are accused of helping the rebels. Despite his father begging for their lives, the soldiers execute both his father and older brother in front of everyone. Agu watches in horror, and in that moment, his childhood is destroyed. The scene shows the brutal and senseless nature of war. After the massacre, Agu is left alone and scared. He runs into the jungle, still in shock from what he has seen. The dense, dark jungle becomes a symbol of his loneliness and fear. Now, Agu is a boy with no family, no home, and no future. Agu's journey through the jungle is grueling. Starving and exhausted, he searches for food, slowly losing his sense of reality. The once playful and imaginative boy is now just a shadow of himself, overwhelmed by fear and grief. Just when it seems Agu might be overcome by the harsh jungle, he is captured by a rebel group called the Native Defense Force, NDF, led by the intimidating and mysterious Commandant, played by Idris Elba. The Commandant is a powerful figure, commanding every scene he's in with a mix of charisma and fear. He is both inspiring and terrifying, capable of earning loyalty through manipulation and control. When he meets Agu, he sees a vulnerable child and an opportunity to turn him into a loyal soldier. In a chilling move, the Commandant offers Agu a twisted sense of comfort and protection, convincing him that he can be part of something bigger than himself. Desperate and with no other options, Agu falls under the Commandant's influence. The rebel group, mostly made up of boys around Agu's age, becomes his new family. Among them is Strika, a mute boy who quickly becomes Agu's close friend. They share a deep, unspoken bond, and their friendship provides a brief escape from the violence and fear surrounding them. One of the most critical moments in Agu's transformation from an innocent child to a soldier happens when he is forced to commit his first murder. In a brutal initiation ritual, the Commandant presents a captured government soldier and orders Agu to kill him. Agu is frozen in fear and confusion, unable to process what is being demanded. Sensing his hesitation, the Commandant steps in and tells Agu that the only way to prove his loyalty is to kill the man. If Agu refuses, his own life will be at risk. In an incredibly tense scene, Agu finally gives in. With tears streaming down his face, he picks up a machete and kills the prisoner. This act marks not only the death of the man but also the end of Agu's innocence. From this moment on, Agu is no longer just a boy caught in the chaos of war. He has become a soldier. Throughout the film, Agu's internal narration gives us insight into his tormented mind. After the killing, he reflects on what he has done, saying, "I am thinking that I will never be able to go back to being a normal boy." This line captures Agu's deep inner struggle as he tries to reconcile the boy he once was with the soldier he is becoming. As Agu becomes more integrated into the rebel group, he is pulled deeper into a world of violence, chaos, and moral confusion. The Commandant's control over him tightens, and Agu takes part in increasingly brutal raids and ambushes. The NDF's attacks are ruthless, targeting villages and government forces with no mercy. In one particularly disturbing scene, the group attacks a village, and Agu is forced to witness and take part in the rape and murder of innocent civilians. The film does not shy away from showing the brutality, leaving the audience to confront the same moral questions that Agu faces. How much of your humanity can you lose before it's gone forever? During these dark times, Agu's friendship with Strika becomes a central part of the story. Strika, who never speaks, is a silent but strong presence in Agu's life. Even in the midst of war, their bond offers Agu a brief sense of normalcy and human connection. Together, they silently navigate the horrors around them, forming an unspoken pact to survive. As the group continues to fight, Agu's inner struggle grows. Through his narration, he admits that he feels like a different person. No longer the boy who played in the fields with his brother, but someone he no longer recognizes. The psychological toll of war weighs heavily on him, and his sense of reality begins to crumble. As time passes, the commandant's true nature is shown. He acts like a leader fighting for freedom. But it's clear he's selfish. He uses his soldiers, especially the children, for his own benefit, taking advantage of their trust and need. His control over Agu becomes more harmful, going beyond just giving orders. In a particularly disturbing turn of events, Agu becomes a victim of the commandant's sexual abuse. The film handles this moment with restraint, but the implication is clear. Agu, like many child soldiers, is being exploited in every possible way. This scene is critical in understanding the full extent of Agu's trauma, as it adds yet another layer of emotional and psychological damage. Agu's narration during these scenes offers a haunting glimpse into his state of mind. He is trapped in a cycle of violence and abuse, with no way out. The commandant, once a father-like figure, is now a source of terror and confusion. Agu's inner turmoil is palpable, and it becomes increasingly clear that the war is not just a physical battle but a psychological one as well. As the war drags on, the rebel group begins to falter. The commandant's once unshakable grip on power weakens as his superiors, including the mysterious Supreme Commander Attah Goodblood, grow tired of his failures. The commandant, who had once seemed invincible, is now scrambling to maintain control over his soldiers. In a pivotal scene, the commandant brings Agu and the other soldiers to meet with the commandant's superiors. The meeting with Supreme Commander Attah Goodblood reveals the larger political structure of the rebel forces and how the commandant is just a small cog in a much larger machine of violence and power. The commandant, once feared and respected by his soldiers, is humiliated in front of the Supreme Commander. Stripped of his authority, he is given no resources, no reinforcements, and no recognition for his efforts in the war. This scene lays bare the disillusionment many soldiers and commanders experience in war. The fight for freedom or power is often a pretext for personal gain, corruption, and senseless violence. Agu watches the commandant's fall from grace with a mix of fear and confusion. This once dominant figure, who had seemed to hold the key to survival, is now powerless. The shift in the commandant's stature has a profound effect on Agu, as it undermines the belief that he had any real purpose in the war beyond being a pawn in someone else's game. The rebel group begins to fracture as a result of the commandant's loss of influence. Many of the soldiers abandon him, realizing that his promises of power and glory were empty. A few loyal followers, including Agu and Strika, remain by his side, not out of loyalty but because they have nowhere else to go. At this point, the commandant is little more than a wandering warlord, desperately clinging to whatever scraps of power he can maintain. The latter part of Beasts of No Nation delves deeper into Agu's descent into hopelessness and confusion. The commandant, now without a cause to fight for, leads his remaining soldiers on a trek through the jungle. They are aimless, starving, and exhausted. Agu's internal monologue becomes more fragmented and surreal as the line between reality and nightmares blurs. He is haunted by visions of his dead family, the faces of the people he has killed, and the atrocities he has witnessed. The jungle itself becomes a symbol of Agu's mental state, dense, dark, and filled with unseen dangers. During this period, Agu's relationship with Strika becomes even more important. Strika, who never speaks, is a source of silent comfort and understanding for Agu. They share their trauma in ways that words cannot express. Strika's presence is one of the few things anchoring Agu to some semblance of humanity. But this fragile bond is soon broken when Strika is killed in a skirmish with government forces. Strika's death is a crushing blow to Agu, who has already lost so much. Without his closest companion, Agu is left utterly alone, adrift in a world that no longer makes any sense to him. Strika's death symbolizes the final severing of Agu's connection to any form of innocence or companionship. He is now fully immersed in the horrors of war, with no hope of return. With Strika gone and the rebel group in tatters, Agu's mental state deteriorates even further. The Commandant, once a figure of control and power, now spirals into madness and desperation. As his authority slips away, the Commandant becomes more erratic and abusive. He continues to manipulate and exploit his remaining soldiers, forcing them to raid villages for food and supplies. However, the sense of purpose that once drove the group has vanished, leaving only violence and chaos in its wake. The Commandant, once the embodiment of strength and charisma, is now a broken man. His fall is a reflection of the futility of war and the false promises made by those in power. Agu, having once seen the Commandant as a protector, now sees him for what he truly is. A man who uses others for his own survival, no different from the government forces they had once fought against. The rebel group's aimless wandering reaches a breaking point when the Commandant leads them to a small village, hoping to find shelter and resources. Instead, they are met with hostility from the villagers, who are just as desperate and terrified as the soldiers themselves. This moment underscores the senselessness of the conflict. Both sides are trapped in a cycle of violence, with no clear enemy or cause. Agu's disillusionment with the war and the Commandant deepens as the group continues to deteriorate. In a moment of quiet reflection, Agu's narration reveals his inner torment. He speaks of the things he has done, the people he has killed, and the horror of realizing that he is becoming numb to the violence. His thoughts are a mix of anger, confusion, and guilt as he grapples with the loss of his innocence. Agu's internal monologue throughout the film serves as a haunting reminder that beneath the soldier's exterior, he is still a child trying to make sense of a world gone mad. He questions whether God is watching him, and if so, why he would allow such terrible things to happen. Agu's faith, once a source of comfort, has been shattered by the relentless brutality of war. Agu's struggle to reconcile his humanity with the horrors he has committed is one of the film's most powerful themes. The turning point in Agu's story comes when he and the remaining members of the Commandant's group are captured by United Nations peacekeepers. The capture is abrupt and almost anticlimactic, a stark contrast to the chaos and violence that has dominated Agu's life up to this point. The peacekeepers, dressed in clean uniforms and speaking a foreign language, seem completely removed from the brutal world Agu has known. For the first time in the film, Agu is faced with a choice: he can continue down the path of violence and war, or he can try to reclaim some semblance of his lost humanity. The transition to life in the UN rehabilitation camp is jarring for Agu. Surrounded by other former child soldiers, he struggles to adapt to the structure and order of the camp. The social workers and peacekeepers offer food, shelter, and psychological support, but Agu remains distant and distrustful. Agu's trauma runs deep, and he finds it difficult to connect with the other children or accept the help being offered. His memories of the war, the Commandant, and the atrocities he committed continue to haunt him. He feels isolated, as though no one could truly understand the darkness inside him. In the camp, Agu slowly begins to open up to a female social worker who patiently tries to help him process his trauma. These scenes provide some of the film's most intimate and emotional moments, as Agu begins to express his pain in a way that he couldn't during the war. The social worker offers Agu a space to talk about his experiences, but it's clear that healing will be a long and difficult journey. In one of the most heart-wrenching moments of the film, Agu reflects on his lost childhood. He speaks about his family, his father, mother, brother, and wonders if he will ever be able to return to the boy he once was. "I am just a boy," he says, his voice filled with both sorrow and confusion. This simple statement captures the core tragedy of Agu's story. He was just a boy caught in the middle of a war he didn't understand, forced to become something he never should have been. The film ends on a note of fragile hope. In the final scenes, Agu is seen playing by the water with the other children in the camp. Though he still carries the weight of his experiences, there is a glimmer of hope that he might be able to find some peace, even if he can never fully escape the trauma of his past. The rehabilitation process is slow, but the fact that Agu is still standing, still fighting for his humanity, suggests that there is a possibility for healing. Beasts of No Nation is a deeply affecting and powerful film that explores the devastating impact of war on children. Through Agu's eyes, we are given a brutal, unflinching look at the loss of innocence and the psychological toll of violence. Cary Joji Fukunaga's direction, coupled with Attah's extraordinary performance as Agu and Idris Elba's menacing yet complex portrayal of the Commandant, makes for a film that is both emotionally gripping and thought-provoking. The film's message is clear: war doesn't just destroy lives, it destroys souls. And yet, even in the midst of unimaginable darkness, there is a sliver of hope that healing and redemption might be possible. Agu's journey is one of survival, but it is also a story of the resilience of the human spirit, even in the face of overwhelming odds. Ultimately, Beasts of No Nation asks us to confront the uncomfortable reality of child soldiers and the ways in which war strips away humanity. It challenges us to look beyond the headlines and statistics and see the individuals whose lives are forever altered by conflict. Through Agu's story, we are reminded that even in the most dehumanizing circumstances, the desire for love, connection, and redemption remains.